everyone, welcome to this session. I'm Molly. I'm your TA for this class. I have been grading your assignments and discussion posts for a little while, but I think it's still not too late for me to introduce myself and also my research interest to you. So, let me introduce myself. I was born in China and then I went to Hong Kong to get my undergrad degree in organizational communication. After that, I worked in Deloitte for a couple years before I returned to academia. So about 2.5 years ago, I came to Columbus to get my master's degree in communication. And now I'm a first-year PhD student in communication at Ohio State. So now let me introduce my master thesis to you. The title of it is How Anonymity and Visibility Affordances Influence Employees' Decisions About Voicing Workplace Concerns. So from this topic, you can see that there are technology opponents and also organizational communication opponents in. Today, we're only going to talk about the rationale, meaning the literature review of my research. If you're interested in the methods or data analysis parts, feel free to drop me a line. I'm more than happy to discuss that with you in person. Before we start, we're going to understand and make it clear that why should we even care about this topic? And then we're going to look at a broader picture of how many types of employee upward communication there are. Then we're going to look at, in terms of content, how can we divide employee voice? After that, let's look at the factors that will influence employees when they decide not whether to voice or not. And then we're going to look at how technology influences this process. Finally, I'm going to show my research results to you and then talk about some of the implications that it has. Yeah, why should we even care about employee voice? First of all, it is very important for the organization. If we only listen to the upper management and without even listening to the frontline employees, we're not understanding the full picture. Sometimes the frontline employees know what's going on in the market because they are the people who make constant contact with with their customers, with their key shareholders. And secondly, if we allow employees to contribute to the organization, then there's higher work satisfaction and there's higher work commitment. According to Casting, in his 1998 very classical piece, there are about 4 types of employee upward communication. So in the very broader sense, there is upward influence. So upward influence, as you can tell from the name, it both includes verbal and nonverbal communication. It's a more broader sense of upward influence. Secondly, there is employee voice. It's defined by me and my advisor in this particular piece is the opinion expressing behavior in an organizational setting. So as you can tell, it's more verbal focus. If you're not expressing an idea or you just sit there without talking about it, you are not making a voice. And then at the more specific level, there's organizational dissent. Organizational dissent is defined as the expressing of disagreement or contradictory opinion at one's organization. So as you can tell, the content of the dissent is most likely negative. And lastly, there is a whistleblowing. Whistleblowing is kind of an extreme form of organizational dissent. It's publicly announcing their disagreement about their organizations. And usually, the audience of the message are not limited within an organization. It usually happens beyond the organization. In terms of the content of the employee voice, there are mainly 2 defined by another 3 scholars. So their promotive voice, which means the employee are expressing a set of new ideas, meaning they're providing a suggestion, they're providing a remedy to a situation. they aim at improving the overall functionality of their work and organization. And secondly, there's a prohibitive employee voice. On the prohibitive side, employees concerned about the negative consequences that the current work practices, the incidences they have on of the organization. So prohibitive voice, as we just talked about, is very closely related with organizational dissent. So we just discussed that there are two types of employee voice. One is suggestive, one is prohibitive. So in the real situation, what type of employee voice do most employees care about? From this research, we can see that the prohibitive voice is more salient because they're most of the time concerned about something, they have problems with the organization, they disagree with the company policies or decisions. So I would like to argue that maybe prohibitive voice is more fundamental because that's the stepping stone of making a promotive voice. If you do not see a problem with the organization, it's really hard for you to make a suggestion to fix the problem. So the question now is, what do employees think about before they make the decision whether to voice or not? According to this model of employee voice proposed by Morrison 7 years ago, there were two important factors. One is perceived safety of the voice, and the second is perceived efficacy of the voice. Perceived safety meaning that whether you feel safe to voice your opinion or not. If you will get demoted, if you will get negatively labeled by other colleagues, then the cost of making such voice is pretty high and it is not safe. Considering from the other main factor is efficacy. The question is about whether your suggestion will make the intended change. If you complain about your salary is really low, do you expect that voice will bring a positive effect to your salary? Will your boss really listen to your suggestion and say, hey, I really think the person works really hard and then he or she should earn more? Then the efficacy is really high. On the other hand, if you perceive your boss is not going to change anything, the perceived efficacy is really low. Now the question is about how can technology influences the voicing process. First of all, I'm going to introduce a very critical concept, affordances, to you. Affordances could be illustrated pretty nicely by the little graph on your top right corner. You can see three objects and they're basically the same, but you can see from the picture that these three people use it very differently. So affordances, let's go back to the definition, are possibilities for action, meaning that they're reasons why people act towards the same object differently. Second, it's a multifaceted relational construct, meaning that it affords more than one action. You can use it multiple different ways. You can use it in multiple different ways. And third and fourth are basically telling you that affordances connects the object, usually the technology, and people's behavior or people's outcome perceptions in a particular context. So the affordances I'm going to talk about in my paper are anonymity and visibility. Anonymity affordances refers to the degree to which a communicator perceives the message source as unknown or unspecified. For example, if you receive a text message from a friend you know, and then the friend sends the message through a device that you already know, meaning that through their own cell phone, which they have been used for a pretty long time, through a phone number that you can easily recognize, then this message has a low level of anonymity. But however, if somebody sends you a message without telling you who they are, without using a number that you are familiar with, then the anonymity level is pretty high. The second affordances I'm using in my paper is visibility. Visibility refers to the perceived scope of readers of an employee's voice through a particular communication medium. For example, if you believe that you're only going to talk with your boss and nobody else, supposedly that your boss is not going to discuss the content of your communication to other people, then the visibility of that communication is pretty low. But however, if you decided to voice your dissatisfaction to everybody in your network, you just post it online, you post it on Facebook, supposingly that everybody can read it, then the visibility of your message is really high. So now I propose that the anonymity and visibility affordances are going to influence employee safety and efficacy perception, and that subsequently will influence their prohibitive voicing intention. Here are the results. Yay, we finally are here. So, what we did find is that anonymity positively influenced people's safety, meaning that the more anonymous they could be, the more safe they would feel about the voicing process. And then also, anonymity will influence efficacy positively, meaning that if people believe that they are really anonymous when communicating through a specific communication channel, they feel like the message is going to reach their target audience, and then the message is going to bring the intended effect. On the other hand, visibility just did the very opposite thing. Visibility is going to influence safety negatively, meaning that the more people you believe are reading your message, the less safe you will be. And also, the more people reading your message, the less efficacy they think they will be. And safety and efficacy are going to positively influence people's prohibitive voicing intention. It tells us that if we really want to listen to employees' contribution, their opinions at work, we have to maximize their safety and efficacy perceptions. Those are very important antecedents as predicted by the model of voice at the very beginning. And secondly, we should maximize their channel affordance, anonymity affordance, meaning that we need to assure them that by using this channel, nobody's going to know who you are, your identity is not revealed in the process. And thirdly, we need to minimize the channel visibility affordance, meaning that we're going to assure to our employees that there's maybe only one people at the end reading your message, so your safety is really ensured, and also the efficacy is really ensured. So that's all I have to say about my thesis to you. If you're very excited about this topic or you don't understand what I'm talking about, particularly about a concept or a relationship, how did that build up? Feel free to drop me a message. I'm more than happy to explain everything more clearly to you. Okay, thank you very much for your time.